So, this June, M.A.S.K is entering the Energon universe with its own ongoing title. This will be the fourth mainline title in the Energon universe and will be released monthly alongside of Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Void Rivals. If you're not familiar with Mobile Armored Strike Command, aka M.A.S.K, that's okay. Not many are, as its legacy is rather small. Back in 1985, toy company Kenner launched M.A.S.K, a toy line that featured multiple characters who came packaged alongside vehicles that had battle features hidden inside of them. Each vehicle could transform and reveal a litany of battle accessories such as missiles, lasers, and new traversal options. Of course, the characters who drove these vehicles also had, masks that you could place on top of them to give them special powers. Simple. The toy was accompanied by a cartoon in the 80s, but it didn't really last that long. In 2024, Hasbro, who now owns the property, partnered up with the loyal subjects to relaunch the toy line to online markets. There's a whole lot more to discover about M.A.S.K, as there's, of course, mentioned 2 seasons of the cartoon, some other comics, a video game even, and more. But I'm not here really to do a deep dive on this line, but rather talk about these characters entering the Energon universe. In Transformers issue 25, writer Robert Kirkman introduced us to Miles Mayhem, the soon-to-be leader of Venom, which stands for Vicious Evil Network of Mayhem, which I truly believe is the greatest organization acronym of all time. Please, US government, you guys need to pick up this name. It's great. Mayhem had a pretty lengthy stay in the comics, and as I've stated on the Teletran Tapes podcast, while I'm not against him showing up, it became apparent that he was more important to the story than just being a random callback to a toy line that was mostly forgotten. It's also on this podcast that I said something that has haunted me to this day, which is essentially I said that I don't feel like M.A.S.K needs its own comic series. That one opinion has led to so many people asking, why does Delta hate M.A.S.K? Now, look, I don't hate M.A.S.K. You see, what was happening was I was starting to strongly dislike that there was this character, Miles Mayhem, who I do actually enjoy, that he was getting more dedicated story than others like RC in the Transformers comic. Issue number 2 of Transformers handled this type of crossover so much better by giving us a glimpse into the world of G.I. Joe with the reveal of Duke. I'm not saying Mayhem should have been handled the exact same way, but his extended stay here absolutely irked a good amount of Transformers fans who obviously wanted their Transformers comic to focus on Transformers. Duh. I sit somewhere in the middle. I enjoy the crossover characters, so long as they don't take over the main story. G.I. Joe issue number 20 is right around the corner, and it seems to focus on Duke and Optimus Prime meeting up, and I'm actually really excited for that. So with that out of the way, why do I hate M.A.S.K? Oh my god, guys. I don't hate M.A.S.K. My main issue was that I didn't feel like the Energon universe needed another title to keep up with. But honestly, that's really just a me thing, and not really a solid critique. I'm still very on the fence about M.A.S.K, especially because, it's not out yet, and I haven't read it. I will say, I am worried that the EU is growing a little too large and a little too fast for its own good. The last thing I want to see in future issues of Transformers, for example, is a little text box telling me to read a couple issues of another series. These titles should complement each other, add to each other, inform each other, not require the reader to do extra homework. This is an issue with any expanded universe. The more you add, the more you interconnect, the more you require of the audience. Like, I know. At the moment, it is not required that you read G.I. Joe or Void Rivals to enjoy Transformers, and vice versa. And I like it this way. However, as we saw with Miles Mayhem, other titles bleeding too heavily into existing ones might be an issue in the future. We'll have to see how G.I. Joe handles their own crossover with Transformers, but I have to repeat that I do not mind crossover events. I look forward to them. Void Rivals and Joe have featured Transformers characters, and they have been handled to varying degrees of success. so long as each comic is not asking me to read the others to understand their own stories. I'm fine with it. I do think Transformers fans should read G.I. Joe, not because it's going to add mountains of context to each other, but because I think they're both very enjoyable stories that happen to exist in the same world and will sometimes intersect. It's great. I think people should read Void Rivals if they want a space opera that is, sometimes, really good. And I do think that people should give M.A.S.K a chance, even if they know nothing about the franchise itself. After all, I knew next to nothing about G.I. Joe, and now I love it thanks to the EU. So yeah, I don't hate M.A.S.K. I'm just unsure how I feel about a fourth title in the EU, and it being based on a franchise that I both know next to nothing about and has been mostly dormant for the past few decades. Does that mean it will be bad? No, not at all. I'm rooting for this comic. It's being written by Dan Waters, who penned the Destro minicomic, and many titles from DC. Art duties have landed on Pi Parr, who has done a few Transformers covers as well as a comic called Petrolhead, which I'm very intrigued by. I hope that M.A.S.K turns out good, but I also hope that it is allowed to exist on its own while being a part of the broader Energon universe. Each title, I think, works best when they stay focused on their own events and characters, with small cameos and crossovers here and there. The Energon Universe specials that come out on Free Comic Book Day every year are also a fun way to have the stories interconnect or cross-promote each other. But I hope that the creators involved are allowed to have their own comics grow, just like that, on their own. I won't be covering M.A.S.K here on the channel, but I will be reading it and giving it a shot. I am wondering why it is currently being marked at a higher cost than the other EU titles, but this is probably because the first issue is going to have a higher page count, just like we saw with Transformers 25. But if not, I definitely think that Image is shooting themselves in the foot asking new readers to pick up a new series that hasn't even proven itself yet at a higher price, so I'm hoping for a higher page count here. But I'm not here to debate the cost of comics. Other creators can handle that way better than I can. June 3rd is approaching, and I'm looking forward to grabbing a new comic off the shelves and seeing if it catches my attention. I love reading new comics, and even if this comic doesn't really do much for me in terms of the Energon universe, hopefully I can still just read it as a comic on its own, and those connections to the Energon universe are there if you want them, and if not, then that's fine. I know plenty of people who read just Void Rivals and don't care about Transformers, or people who read Transformers and don't care about G.I. Joe, and so on and so forth. And so I really hope that, again, while the crossover events are really fun, that these comics are allowed to somewhat exist on their own, while also at the same time existing in this broader universe. At least that's just what I think. I like the look of M.A.S.K. I like all these mechanical helmets, all these, well, masks. I like Miles Mayhem and his drip and his organization name, so what the hell? Why not give it a try? Speaking of giving it a try, if you want to join the conversation, there's a link down below to join my Discord. It's just $1 for an access. We've got a lot of stuff going on there. We've got game nights, we've got monthly Energon Universe calls. It's a great way to join the community, and we've got a lot of great things going on. So I hope to see you in there. I'll see you guys in the next video.